Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, listeners, and thanks for joining us on Palestine Remembered. Today we're going to go straight to Gaza and one of our dear friends, Mosheer Amr. Before we speak to Mosheer, we've got to talk about Gaza and where it's at today. Unfortunately, COVID has made it into Gaza beyond the isolation areas, and it is the first cases of community transmission. The Gaza Strip has been locked down, and in fact, the first time since 1994. Aside from the brutal siege, we've now got Gaza in full lockdown. So alongside the dense population, the soaring poverty, and the de-developed infrastructure, Gazans are now dealing with the blockade as well as full lockdown. And to give you an idea of the collective punishment that's been inflicted on Gaza in the past couple of weeks alone, there's been an increase in the ban of construction materials, the fishing zones have been reduced, there's been a ban of entry of fuel, access to the sea has been cut off, the power plant has had to shut due to the lack of fuel. Most of the homes are only getting a couple of hours a day. Hospitals are at a critical stage where 50% of the medicines have less than 1 month's supply. If that wasn't enough, Gazans are subject to nightly air raids and bombings. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning, Nasser. I'm very, very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm very excited, though. We've got one of our favourite friends from Gaza joining us, Dr. Mosheer Amr. Good morning or good evening.
Good evening, or actually good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot, Nasser, for having me.
Pleased to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you, Martin.
Now, I just wanted to say quickly, before we started the interview, you were just saying that potentially something can happen with your power, and if it happened, we would have to wait. Can you just briefly tell us that again?
Well, since the last couple of weeks, for 14 days in a row, we've been having severe restrictions on power cuts. So we only have 3 hours a day in a 24 cycle of electricity. And this is because the Israeli occupation authorities have prevented the entry of fuel that is needed to generate the main power plant in Gaza. From entering into Gaza, and prevented the essential materials to access Gaza. So we've been really under duress because of this situation. I mean, you're talking about 3 hours of electricity. Basically, the Gaza Strip is near paralysis because of this situation. All life sectors have been almost come to a standstill, to a stop, because of this severe situation. So at any point, I might have a power cut. So we have to wait for some time before I come back with, we have to operate like some of these local generators for electricity. But the situation is quite dire in general, as people receive only 3 hours of electricity, let alone the other sort of essential sectors of life, the factories, the schools, the universities, the hospitals, and other areas have been suffering because of this severe restriction on power, on electricity.
I mean, we should say you're in the middle of summer, and the temperatures there at the moment are...
Absolutely. I mean, we are degrees are like 30 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees, and around this range. So it's very hot, and so you have, lack of power, lack of electricity, coupled with heat, and now we have the coronavirus. So it's a very horrible mix, actually, of things. So the process is going through a very difficult time these days.
The houses are full. They're big families.
I mean, I've got a family of 5 kids, and my condition is relatively okay for myself. But we're talking about a population where poverty, or 80% to 85% of the population are under poverty line, and you have crowded refugee camps. We're talking about the Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. So we're talking about, just to put the listener in perspective, the Gaza Strip is a 365 kilometers square. So you're talking about under 2 million people living there, or actually besieged in this very small territory. So a population density of 1 kilometer for every 5,000 people, plus or minus. So the situation is quite difficult. I mean, given all these difficult circumstances that people are going through, have been going through for quite, let's say, 14 years since the Israeli blockade on Gaza in 2006, 2007.
Mosheer, we have an increase at the moment of hostility. We had the Great Return March land day a couple of years ago. Since then, there's been action on the fence on the Fridays, but there was supposed to be some sort of easing of the siege recently. The Israelis, as usual, haven't fulfilled their part of the obligation. And of late, we've had something like 2 weeks in a row of nightly bombings from the Israelis. We've had a reduction in the sea available for the fishermen. The entry and exits are being closed, etc.
Yes.
Hospitals, medicine is down. There is an uptake in, we call them protest balloons, but the Israelis have decided that they are incendiary balloons. These are weapons of mass destruction the Palestinians have employed.
Exactly. I mean, the Israelis can say whatever they want. I mean, they are the occupiers. Israel is, under international law, is the occupying power that is imposing a siege on the Gaza Strip and exercising collective punishment of the 2 million people living in the Gaza Strip. So preventing the entry of essential materials, medicines, and preventing people from leaving and sort of the Gaza Strip and coming back to the Gaza Strip, in addition to a host of very difficult measures, draconian measures, I should say, that have left the people nearly suffering in every aspect of life, on the educational level, on the health conditions, on the economic condition, a very high rate of unemployment. Nearly 60% of the population are unemployed. And I'm saying these numbers quoting international humanitarian organizations. In addition to other issues that people have been suffering for. And therefore, we're talking about Gaza. It is the largest open air prison on planet Earth. People virtually are caged in this small territory, deprived of their basic rights of movement, of a livelihood, of human dignity, of living a normal life. So the Palestinians have no choice but to lash out. I mean, against the occupation, and they're exercising this right to resist through, launching balloons as an act of desperation. I should say this is an act of desperation. I mean, they have no sort of sophisticated arms arsenal, unlike
Can you
Israel.
just explain what they
the
are?
Occupying power. Sorry.
Can you just explain what they are, the balloons?
The balloons is basically like the boys, the girls, or the young kids, when they sort of inflate these balloons, they're filled with helium, and they're sort of sent into with some incendiary materials that aim to sort of provoke and cause some fires in neighboring Israeli settlements. So as an act of popular resistance, that's the most they can do actually against a heavily armed Israeli occupation military that is depriving them of their basic rights in freedom and access of movement and other basic necessities and rights. So again, they can say whatever they want, but this doesn't change the realities on the ground, doesn't change the facts on the ground, that we're talking about a people under occupation trying to have decency, to exercise their human decency and human dignity, and have a chance to live a normal life like any other people around the world. So the blame and responsibility must be placed on the occupying power, on the occupation, on the Israeli occupation that is trying to subjugate the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank and Jerusalem to its military diktats and its sort of what it wants from the Palestinians, which is to continue to be the Palestinians, subjugate them into occupation.
We should say this. You said that Gaza is a concentration camp before Mosheer.
Yeah.
The reality is the Palestinians within Gaza, they're in jail. And as an act of defiance, frustration at the world for its silence now, 14 years of silence, but at the frustration of their humanity being denied by the occupiers, the Zionist Israeli occupiers, they are banging on the door of the cage.
Yeah.
This is what the balloon is. It's a banging on the door of the cage saying,
Yeah.
I am here, let me out.
So,
I want my freedom. I want my rights. That is what the balloon is. There's a protest balloon.
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, this is exactly the case. I mean, the people have been suffering for the past 14 years under this horrendous blockade. And therefore, this is also a call to the world, to the free people around the world to stand by the Palestinians in their righteous demands for freedom, for independence, for liberty, to live their life normally like any other people in the West. So we are disappointed because of that. There is a lack of responsibility on the part of the international community, on world governments, and all other international organizations have been really very weak in their responses in pressuring Israel to lift its siege on the Palestinians, especially in the Gaza Strip. I mean, the Israelis are imposing their diktats, imposing their wants and measures without the word blinking an eye and saying, no, we have to stop this anomaly. We have to stop this oppression exercise against the Palestinians. And at the same time, we have the Israelis demonizing the Palestinians, blaming the Palestinians for lashing out, for saying, no, we're knocking on the prison wall. We, the Palestinians, are knocking on the prison wall, saying enough is enough. This is unacceptable. We can't be forced into this harsh reality and not speaking out. So they're blaming the Palestinians for speaking out and saying, no, this has got to stop. The Palestinians are among the brightest of the Arab people, and like any other people, they have dreams, they have aspirations. They need to fulfill their rights and aspirations like any other people of the world. They need to live their life in dignity and freedom, and the Israeli occupation is preventing that under really very sort of shady and unacceptable accusations.
I was just going to make a comment that we make it similar to a prison. But a prison, you actually have rights. You get visitation, you get medical as well. So it's actually well worse than what a prison is.
Well, I mean, I would say it's even worse than a prison. I mean, in a prison, you have your wants and demands and your needs of electricity, of water, and of food, of healthcare, guaranteed by the prison administration. Whereas in the Gaza Strip, especially I'm talking about the Gaza Strip, you have most of this denied, and then you have to, you are asked to keep silent, to remain silent. This is really unacceptable, and no one can accept that, for example.
And one more difference is that the guards in a jail will get held to account, whereas we had Israeli soldiers sniping at Palestinians from hundreds of meters away, and nobody has been held to account. And the world did see it, but yet nothing has happened.
I mean, the atrocities, the Israeli occupation army's atrocities against the Palestinians demonstrators have been well documented by many international organizations, many human rights organizations. But again, Israel acts with impunity without, no one has been really sent to jail for crimes against humanity and against sort of their human rights violations. And this has given Israel leeway, and more chances to exercise more measures, more atrocities and violations of Palestinian rights. For the past 2 weeks, the Palestinians have been bombed. I mean, by the Israeli drones and Israeli aircraft, military aircraft. and you don't see anything sort of covered in international media as if this is something a personal, or as if this is an internal Israeli issue. No, this is a conflict between people under occupation and a military power. And any way to twist this fact is really, doesn't hold water, actually. I mean, again, the pressure must be placed on the occupying power, which is Israel under definition of international law. That must be held accountable for all its crimes and for its violations of Palestinian human rights.
100%, Mosheer. It's brilliantly said. And the parallels, what we should say is, when we speak about conflict, we're not talking about equal powers here. Coming back to the balloons, there's a helium balloons, they attach a bit of cotton or something, they set fire to that cotton and they release the balloons.
And excuse me, Nasser, I should say something. I mean, the effect of the balloons have been really exaggerated by the Israeli occupation army. I mean, you're talking about burning of a few dunams, a few hectares of farmland, and then you have the Israeli propaganda, Israeli media exaggerating this as if this is a threat to the existence of the Israeli occupation, in order to convince the world that Israel is the victim and the Palestinians are the victimizers, and also to allow Israel to exercise, to bomb the Palestinians, to carry out military and air attacks against the Palestinians, to continue to impose its severe siege on the Palestinian people. I mean, this is a scenario of a classic case of occupation, of colonialism. You have the colonizers blaming the colonized for saying, no, we cannot accept this, we want our freedom. So it's the same thing, actually. I mean, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is no different from other conflicts, past conflicts between occupied people, colonized peoples around the world, and their colonizers. And then you have the colonized people being demonized, being ostracized for saying no, for resisting the occupation and the colonizer.
We're going to move on to COVID, but before that, I just want to inform our listeners, you were talking about 2 million people in Gaza, the population in 365 square kilometers. This is 5,500 people per square kilometer. If Australia had the population density of Gaza, instead of our population being 25 million, it would be 42 billion. So for people to understand just how bad you think traffic might be in Australia today, imagine instead of 26 million, 42 billion. That's what it's like living in Gaza today. And during the week, Mosheer, tragically, we've had the first incidents of community transmission of corona.
Correct, yeah. I mean, this is the worst case scenario that could happen, and it's actually starting. And this is what we warned of, previously, I think on your shows, Nasser, I mean, a few months ago, that all efforts have been made over the past 6 months, I mean, by the health authorities and the competent authorities in Gaza to prevent any sort of spread of the coronavirus inside the Gaza Strip, for the reason that you mentioned, that we're talking about one of the highest densely populated areas in the world. And the very idea of sort of social distancing is not really that effective in Gaza with this small territory and a high density population density.
Impossible.
So what we've seen since last Monday, less than 48 hours, there have been news of 4 cases of coronavirus confirmed inside the Gaza Strip. Most of the cases before, over the past 6 months, were quarantined on entry to the Gaza Strip. But now this is the scenario that everybody is apprehensive of. I mean, which is, you have the spread of the corona among the population. So till this last hour, there have been 14 cases of coronavirus in Gaza. And then we have 1 fatality. You're talking about less than 48 hours and you have 1 fatality because of the coronavirus. So everybody is really worried. I mean, the population and everybody's concerned here that the situation might really get out of control. Hopefully not, because of Gaza has been. I mean, the health situation in Gaza has been really in tatters. I mean, under very difficult conditions. You've got I mean, for 2 million people, you have like 100 ventilators, and only 100, and then you have 170 ICU beds only in the Gaza Strip. I mean, you're talking about a very weak health situation in Gaza because of the siege and because of the systematic de-development of the Gaza Strip because of the Israeli measures over the past years. And then you have the stock of essential medicines in the Gaza Strip is half the amount required. And then you have the Israelis preventing, essential needs and essential, especially health equipment, from coming into Gaza, or in a sort of by in a trickle way, just not the needed amounts of equipment, medical equipment, and medical essentials to come to Gaza Strip.
It seems like a perfect storm for one of the places, being Gaza, to be one of the worst countries hit.
I mean, luckily we've been preventing the coronavirus from coming to Gaza over the past 6 months. Now it is a different scenario, and everybody is bracing for the worst actually at this moment. And I'm living in the Gaza Strip here in the heart of Gaza City, and we've been under a complete lockdown, and the cities have been sort of cordoned off. Every city and every town has been closed off. And then you have the medical team, the health team, and security teams are trying to sort of to control and contain the spread as much as they could. But I know that the situation, we might get at a peak of virus cases here in the Gaza Strip. So pray for us, actually.
In our thoughts always, Mosheer, you and your family and all of the Palestinians who are remaining steadfast. I mean, this is the thing that Zionism can't reconcile. As a settler colonialist ideology, as you spoke about, what you need to do is to vanquish the indigenous people. With all of their cruelty and barbarity, they haven't been able to do it. The resistance and steadfastness of the Palestinian people, and exemplified by your brothers and sisters, with so much courage, you lift all of our hearts in Gaza. It is beyond imagining.
Thanks a lot for your feelings, Nasser. We the Palestinians people, and I think together with all good and free and conscientious people around the world. It's a classic case of an anti-occupation struggle that we, the Palestinians, have been fighting for. Since 1948 and even before. The problem, the root cause of this struggle is the occupation. And then we shouldn't really look at the symptoms. We have to look at the sort of the causes of this conflict. And this basically, in a word, the occupation. It is the occupation. It's the colonization of the Palestinian people, the colonization and the subjugation of the Palestinian people under a foreign military rule that wants the Palestinians to vanish. And the Palestinians, like all other peoples in the world, refuse to be unrecognized. They insist on exercising their free will, exercising their rights for freedom and self-determination and freedom. And we have been paying a very heavy price as a Palestinian people for our freedom, to regain our freedom, to gain our self-determination and independence. And as long as the international community, world powers, are failing us in sort of, if they don't really intervene, in other words, to resolve this conflict on the basis of international law, on the basis of basic human principles, which are to give the Palestinians their freedom and their independence, things will continue, and the Palestinians are nowhere to raise white flags and accept the occupation as a reality. They refuse to accept this reality of occupation, of militarism, of colonization, and this is something unacceptable for the Palestinians, and we will continue to resist, to continue to fight for our freedom and independence.
Fantastic.
That's an amazing thing. Considering what you guys are going through compared to the rest of the world, to hear your words it just gives you goosebumps. And I know that you guys aren't going to quit. And we need the rest of the world to stand up and stand by you guys. I mean, you're only asking for what's right. It's not hard.
Absolutely.
There's no argument.
I mean, and I'm really honored and sort of delighted, and it makes really me feel proud to see a lot of people around the world who are conscientious or good people who see things for what they are. I mean, and amongst them actually some really good Jews. I mean, good friends, good Jewish friends. Who've been really steadfast and really very vocal in criticizing and condemning the occupation, the Israeli colonization of the Palestinian people, and they're making their voice heard around the world in support of Palestinian rights, in support of Palestinian demands for freedom and determination and self-determination. So this is
we just need more. We just need more.
That we are all together. And you're right, Martin. We need more. We need enough pressure. We need enough mass movement around the world to pressure governments in Australia, in America, and in Britain, everywhere, to put pressure on the Israeli occupation to lift their hand off the Palestinian people, to give the Palestinians a chance to live a normal life like other peoples around the world.
Thank you, Mosheer. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Very quickly, we had the UAE normalize with Israel. Reaction in Gaza?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're condemning this normalization or any form of normalization with the Israeli state. For one reason, Israel is not a normal state. Israel is not like Sweden or Norway, or Israel is an occupying power. Israel is a state that was established on Palestinian people, on Palestinian land, that denies the Palestinian people their rights for freedom and movement and self-determination. So we cannot reward Israel for its atrocities, for its violations of the Palestinian human rights. I think the best action is to ostracize Israel. The best action is to boycott Israel. The best action is actually to pressure Israel to give the Palestinians their freedom to reach a peaceful settlement on the basis of international law and international resolutions before any kind of normalization with Israel. But before that, this is a betrayal to the Palestinian people. This is a betrayal for the struggle of all good people around the world who have been fighting for Palestinian rights to gain their freedom. I think this is something unacceptable for the Palestinian people to see the UAE or any other country to normalize relations with Israel, because this is basically gives Israel impunity to continue killing the Palestinians, to continue its violations against the Palestinians. And all good people around the world, we should reflect, we should actually tell UAE and other governments intending to normalize relations with Israel, you're making the wrong move. The right move is in the direction of boycotting Israel, imposing sanctions and divestments on Israel until it complies with international law, until it complies with United Nations resolutions that give the Palestinians their rightful rights and demands.
Fantastic. What a great way to end the interview. Mosheer, a global call for boycott, divestment and sanctions of the apartheid Israel state. Thanks so much, Brother Mosheer.
Thank you very much, Nasser.
Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time.
That was our dear friend, Dr. Mosheer Amr, who's a professor of discourse analysis and linguistics at the English department of the Islamic University of Gaza. A quick recap on Gaza. 50% of the population is under 18. The land, air and sea siege has entered its 14th year. 70% of the population are within a day's walk of their ancestral homes and lands. The calorific intake required per person is calculated by the Israelis, and only that amount of food is allowed in on a daily basis, just enough to ensure no mass starvation. Hospitals are without vital medicines. Schools are running 2 and 3 shifts. It has the highest unemployment rate in the world. The water table is polluted due to Israeli attacks on the sewage treatment plant. The UN in 2012 said Gaza would be unlivable in 2020 if measures were not taken to improve the infrastructure. Not only has there been no improvement, Israel has destroyed much of what was there in 2012, and the population has grown by over 30%. There's never been a better time to boycott, divest and sanction Israel. Free Palestine. Share the podcast. Be sure to tune in next week.